man. We want to see
Yeah.
that fight. Speaking of Nate, Sensei,
Yes.
do you want to
Perfect
talk
segue.
about
I was
the
like, what a
segues
segue,
here?
Wonder
To
Boy.
ask your
Fantastic.
questions, Sensei.
We got to ask you, because we are the #1 podcast in the world when it comes to influencer boxing.
Talk to
Let's
him. Let him know,
go.
baby.
So we got Nate Diaz, Jake Paul, confirmed 10 rounds. What are your thoughts on that, right? Nate Diaz is, we saw Woodley make that, did that fight. And now we have Nate Diaz, another legend, making his way over to fight Jake Paul. What are your thoughts there on Jake Paul and that fight?
Okay. For one, I'm gonna talk about Nate first.
Yep.
These guys that are facing the Paul brothers, they aren't boxers. They are not
Correct.
boxers. They are mixed martial arts. They're MMA fighters moving over to a completely different sport. Now, not saying that Nate couldn't put him to sleep, but that's just not his style. He's not a power striker. He's a volume striker. I feel like the later the fights go, maybe he has a chance, but he's facing a professional athlete now, not just a YouTuber.
That's right.
This guy, Jake Paul, is a professional athlete. And you see him putting in the work. That's why I respect him so much, because a lot of times you see these guys, these influencers try to go over to a different sport completely, and they give it a half-assed try.
Right.
This dude is putting in all the work.
Yeah.
He's putting himself through punishment. If you look at his body, man, I mean, he is an
I've seen it first person, Wonder Boy. I've been down there in Puerto Rico with him and watched him train. It's incredible.
And it's been years now.
He can throw hands. And I mean, here recently, he's fought Anderson Silva. He fought Tyson Fury.
Tommy Fury. Yep.
Tommy Fury. Excuse me.
Yep.
Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
And he looked great, man. He looked good. He knows, he's smart enough to know, he's intelligent enough to know what fights are going to make him the most money and what fights he can win.
Yeah.
Right?
He marries them too.
There's always that if factor, which is why people tune in.
Yep.
But Jake is going to win.
There you go. I mean, listen, we've been on that same train. We think Jake's probably going to take this. It's going to take a Herculean effort from Nate, and the 10 rounds does help him. But
for sure,
we're on that same page. But speaking of another influencer boxer, you know that you've spoken to our boy Fred Talks Fighting about KSI a little bit. I ask about it. Let's just say Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, that a guy like KSI and a guy like Jake Paul were to meet in a match. Not that we've been waiting on it for 5 years now, but let's just say it happened.
Yeah.
Obviously, you only have a little bit to go off of. What would you think happens there?
I think it would be an exciting fight, to be honest with you. I think it'd be very exciting just because of the two different styles clashing together, right?
Yep.
Jake Paul with the more fundamental boxing movement, hands up, head movement, and you have the KSI with the distance management, the karate kind of style movement, hands down. But this is somebody who hasn't been doing karate his entire life. So somebody who doesn't really understand it yet. He can put it together against somebody his same caliber, and his opponent not know what's going on. But when you have somebody who's been working really, really hard on the fundamentals of boxing, such as Jake Paul, I think Jake may have the edge there, right? Because if you notice, when KSI ended up moving forward, where was his chin?
Oh yeah, he's
sticking straight up.
Yeah.
With somebody who's got good counter striking or good fundamental boxing, that could be dangerous for KSI.
Yeah.
All Jake has to do is sit down on his punches,
which he does,
and let KSI run into a left hand or be quiet, Siri.
Siri always messing him.
I know, man. I just feel like KSI could probably end up running into something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's general consensus over here at the Breakdown. But stepping away from the influencer stuff for just one more second here, we had this question that we wanted to ask you before we let you go today. And Sensei and I have both thought about it. We have our own, but I want to know yours. What's your favorite fight you've ever been in? The one fight you look back to and go, that was my career-defining moment. That one right there.
Okay. My favorite fights aren't necessarily the fights that I've won. The fights that I've lost. And the reason for that is you learn a lot about yourself when you're in deep water, where you are. You know, people can say that they can go out there and do this and do that. Oh, I wouldn't tap or I wouldn't give up, but they've never been in a situation like that, right? They've never been put in a situation where it's the hardest moment. You feel like you're about to die, but yet you don't stop, right?
Yeah.
I've seen fighters out there at the top, at the highest level, looking for a way out,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you're fighting somebody like Khabib, right? Who he's talking to you, he's grinding you out. I've seen guys literally turn their back and pretend to defend their neck just so they could get out of there.
Yeah.
But my favorite fight, I would say, was Madison Square Garden, UFC 205.
Woodley won. Yeah.
Against Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
That was a different Woodley
It's crazy
than the one we're used to seeing recently.
Yeah.
That Woodley was just a freaking. I remember looking at him